Hello, good afternoon, and wishing you all a very warm welcome to today's event. We are delighted to be joined by both Alessandra Sala and Professor Joyce O'Connor for the event today, which promises to be a really interesting and insightful conversation all about AI and its impact on society, and specifically its impact on women. Before we delve any further into the subject matter, and indeed before I introduce you to our esteemed speaker for today and our lovely moderator, Joyce O'Connor, can I just briefly run through some housekeeping with you, please? So a lot of you are quite familiar with our events, and you'll know that we do record them. So just making you aware, we are recording the event, but on the positive side to that, you can watch it back at your leisure and on demand under the events replay channel on IOB Learn, which is fantastic because I know sometimes you can register for these events, meetings crop up, great for you to be able to watch that back at your leisure. In terms of CPD for today, so we just want to make you aware you need to be online for the full duration of the event in order to get the CPD hour. If at any stage you lose your connection to Zoom, that's absolutely no problem. We just ask you to rejoin as quickly as you can, because the Zoom report that we run out the other side of the event does record your time of re-entry onto the call. So if you're online for the full duration of the event, and if you're eligible for CPD, we will look after getting your CPD log updated within about 15 working days. So there's nothing for you to do. There's no code to submit. We'll look after all of that for you. I know from chatting with both Alessandra and Joyce before the call, they're really interested in making today as interactive and engaging as possible. Alessandra has done up a really brilliant slide deck, but we'd love to hear from you. So if you have comments and insights throughout the session, please do pop those into the Q&A pod. Professor O'Connor has kindly agreed to moderate a Q&A with Alessandra, so we'd encourage any and all questions that you might have. Pop those into the Q&A pod. Please don't be shy. We've world expert here with us, and she'd love to hear from you, and she'd love to answer your questions. So please do, as I say, pop those into the chat. We're going to have lots of time for member questions, so don't be shy. Now, I think without further ado, Joyce, I might give an introduction to you, and I think you're going to then introduce us to Alessandra. So Professor O'Connor, some of you might have been on the event with her a couple of weeks ago. And as I said then, I'll say it again, she wears many hats, and chief amongst them is as a global researcher and a leading academic in her field. And really throughout your career, Joyce, I think it's fair to say you've championed access to education, which is such a wonderful thing. So as I say, Joyce is moderating the Q&A later. She is a global Eisenhower Fellow Professor. She's founding president of the National College of Ireland, or NCI, and recognising the importance of early learning, she established the Early Learning Initiative in NCI in 2005. A chair and board member of a wide range of organisations, businesses and government agencies, Professor O'Connor chaired A Vision for Change, which helped to redefine government policy in the mental health area. So we are really privileged to have you with us again today, Professor O'Connor. I'm going to hand over to you now without further ado, and I will pop back up at the end of Alessandra's presentation. I wish you both the very best of luck, and thank you again for your time today.
Thank you very much, Claire, for that very warm welcome, and a very warm welcome to all of you, our audience, to our BlockW IOB webinar today on the fast development of AI impacts on society and women. I'm really pleased to welcome our distinguished speaker, Dr. Alessandra Sala, a national and internationally recognized research and scientific leader in artificial intelligence. Alessandra is the Senior Director of AI and Data Science in Shutterstock. So thank you very much for being with us today. I know you've had a very busy day, so we're delighted to have you here and appreciate that very much indeed, Alessandra. Today's webinar is on AI, and I think we all know that everything, every day in the paper or on the radio or television, there's something about AI. Interestingly enough, vast claims have been made for and against new technologies over the centuries, but almost none have become a reality. Yet there's something new about AI because it involves making machines that reportedly will be more intelligent than humans. So if this turns out to be true, we will indeed be in a new technological era. So it's hard to believe that there was a revolution in hardware and computer, but now this has been followed by a similar revolution in software. If you think back to November 2022, the startup out of San Francisco, OpenAI, launched ChatGPT, the chat box. Millions of users, including many of you attending here today, have experienced firsthand the near magical power of generative AI. It's now possible to do so many things with this amazing tool. We could write poetry, maybe even like Seamus Heaney, or take fake photographs. And we've seen these of the Pope in a buffer jacket. So a lot of things have become possible using this particular tool. But you know what? AI has enormous power and impact, but we also need to be alert to the danger of its misuse. BlockW is a female-led organization. I'm the co-founder and chair, and we're there to help create awareness of technologies like AI, making it accessible, to make it more inclusive, creating that awareness of the range, use, and application of technology that changes people's lives. We have a passion about increasing inclusivity, access, diversity, equality, and sustainability in the use and uptake of technologies like AI, which fosters a new era of technological progress and innovation. In relation to AI, it's crucial to examine its impact on different segments of society, particularly women and minorities. And today, Alessandra is going to do just that, looking at that role of women, minorities, and other areas. The focus of Alessandra's work as Senior Director in Shutterstock is transforming innovation from research to specific projects. But besides doing all that really amazing work, she also co-chairs the UNESCO Women for Ethical AI platform and is the global president of Women in AI. Alessandra is also an ambassador for BlockW and is working worldwide with a strong community of women to foster diversity, inclusion, equality for women minorities, while encouraging a global ethical approach to AI. Alessandra also serves as chair of the governance committee of SFI Centre for Research Training and Machine Learning. You can see all the work she has done. You won't be surprised to know that she received numerous awards, both nationally and internationally. But one I'm going to take out specifically, and that is the prestigious 15th prize, Le Techno Visionnaire, in the AI industrial category, which Alessandra was awarded there recently. So Alessandra, as we said, would speak for 30 minutes, and as Claire has really prompted you, and both Alessandra and myself would really like you to send in questions, maybe comments, during her presentation. So we're looking forward to receiving your questions through the Q&A function. So it's over to you, Alessandra, and we look forward to your presentation. And thank you very much again for being with us today.
Thank you, Joy. You are always particularly kind with my introduction. Oh my goodness. And thank you for hosting me today, to give me an opportunity to speak with all of you. I've heard we have 500 people registered. So your voice, it's what's really important. We'll cover some topic. And please ask question, interrupt me, let's have a conversation. So as Professor Joyce mentioned, I'm working at Shutterstock as a commercial application. We do generative AI in-house. I'm also leading Women in AI as a president. It is an international non-profit organization. Today we have an event in Dublin. You are all invited to come. I'll just share the registration link. It will start at 6 p.m. So if anyone wants to come, you are very, very welcome. And the work we're doing with UNESCO on Women for Ethical AI, which we'll touch on later to try to understand why those things are important today. But first of all, I like to start with a little bit of an introduction on AI and really get us all together with the same language and with the same definition of those contexts. So AI, it's growing and emerging and become part of everyday life today, but it's a technology that has been with us in the research and technological world from since the 1956 with some higher law, because before we didn't have big data set, we didn't have the computing power that we have today, and we didn't invent all the different technological innovation that have led us to build algorithms with the power of the ChatGPT that Professor Joyce was referring to before. And I'm sure some of you have heard the announcement just yesterday night from ChatGPT 4.0. She's this amazing that you can speak with and understand your surrounding. You can say, where am I? What is the lighting condition? Is it good for this meeting or not? And so on. So it's an up and down technology that is emerging and really starting to have an impact on everyone's life today. It's a very big technological space. Everyone talks about AI, but within AI, there are many different aspects. It's like medicine. Yeah, but within medicine, that is cardiologist, and there are so many different specialties. And the same in AI. Machine learning is one of the most dominant aspects of AI, but there is reasoning and robotics as well. Deep learning, reinforcement learning are special ways of implementing those models that learn from data, and generative AI, it's yet a new evolution within this technology. And a few years ago, EU had a high-level expert group which was tasked to give a definition, and the AI referred to systems that display intelligent behavior by analyzing their environment and acting, taking action and decision with some degree of autonomy and targeted to specific goal. Can be only software like the ChatGPT or the Alexa, or they can be within hardware. So it becomes more of the robotic, self-driving car kind of application. So, but let's try to understand what's new in this AI world, because there have been people doing software for much longer. Why software and programming and algorithm are really different from AI algorithms? So before, what I'm calling classical programming is the way we write software in general. So we tell a computer program step by step what to do. And we give some data to just apply those rules on to generate an outcome. So it's specific programming based on a set of rules. And then we move into the world of AI, where this world is changing the game. I'm not telling the rules anymore. I'm just telling how to learn from the data. So I'm giving an example of a data and an answer, and the model, the algorithm, figure it out how to go from this example to an answer. So when we'll present a new example, it will give us directly an answer, right? So just what does it mean to learn from data and what's the process? The first step that we'll touch on later on what's happening today in this world of collecting very, very big data set, because you need to have a lot of example. You create those data set with a lot of example, you give it to the algorithm, and the algorithm formulate that set of rule and that set of structures that are able now to just take decision. So you give a new example and it will give you the prediction. Just to give you a practical example, I will show it just after this slide, just to put everything in context. Artificial intelligence is this big space. Within it, machine learning is the kind of algorithm that learn from data. Deep learning are advanced algorithms that are able to learn from a very large scale of data. And now there is generative AI, which are these even more advanced models which operate on an even larger data set, which are able to do amazing things like ChatGPT or generate images or generating 3D objects or generating videos. So here we go to an example. So machine learning, we give as an input all the example that I was looking for. For example, in this case, I will give a lot of example of cars. And me, as a machine learning scientist, decide to characterize this image of a car with so many characteristics that I tell the algorithm to learn. And then the algorithm will learn to say, this is a car and this is not a car. In the world of deep learning and generative AI, this part of feature engineering, where there is the programmer defining all this set of information about those examples that are learned by the model, it gets completely eliminated. So now we just give example. We just give cars, as many cars as possible. So this model now independently learns what's a car and what's not a car. So that's the main difference between machine learning and deep learning in practice. For us, for the daily life, what do we do every day? Some of the classical example, how those models have touched our life when we watch Netflix. And again, if you have questions, jump in, ask me the question, I'll be happy to answer. Netflix, the recommendation that it gives us, what kind of movie I may like or I may not like. Facebook and the level of personalization that Facebook does on all our feeds that are different depending on what we like. Alexa, our ability of interacting with them, and Google. Google has done spam detection. I don't know how many of you remember how it was before on emails. There was so many spam emails that we had to manually eliminate. Today, I don't even see spam anymore, right? So how much this technology is really augmenting our life. But here we are, the day after the announcement of ChatGPT 4.0, and everyone is talking about generative AI. This technology that only as Professor Joy said, in the last year or so, has completely changed our perspective on how much AI is actually going to change our life and our jobs. So generative AI refers to the set of deep learning model that can produce novel content. So they generate a new piece of content that is similar to the data that we have given to this model. And that's why the data are such an important part. So you can generate based on what you have learned. It's like a kid. If it learns polite language, it will speak in a polite manner. Otherwise, we know what's the result. So those models are very powerful because now they can learn from so many different kinds of data, from synthetic tests, programming code, realistic images, video, 3D, music. So they can generate across all the modality of content and communication that we use. And that's why it has become such a pervasive technology. But I want to spend a little bit of time on some of the generative AI use cases, because I think they are important to discuss and understand how do they impact everything that we do every day. So from a visual content perspective, imagine image generation, image announcement, video prediction, 3D generation. So all things that you can do with visual content. From an audio perspective, we have music, we have text to speech, speech to text. From a text generation perspective, creating writing, chatbot, translation, and code. We have code generation, so really programming instead of letting people to program, or code completion. So you know how to start, but you don't really know how to finish, or bug fixing, using those models to actually review your code. So such a enhancement opportunity. I want to share an experience and what I've learned just last week with you. I was at this event at Microsoft, and in Microsoft, I guess more than 30,000 people are using Copilot every day. And on Friday, they have sharing session. So they share with each other what they have learned, what it works, what it doesn't work. Executive tell everyone in the company how they are using this technology. So it's a technology that helps with the chat, with Teams, with Outlook, with Word, with PowerPoint, Excel, OneNote, Loop, all the software that they have. And therefore, everyone that use these kind of tools, it doesn't matter if you use Microsoft or another provider, because they are all going to integrate this technology in their product, and therefore we will be exposed the way we did the slide a few years ago, or I prepared this presentation. I don't think in few months it will be the same experience anymore. Because now if you have a chatbot that can help you to create this slide with the right color, with the right text, and maybe instead of an image, you can create icons that describe the concept that you want to represent. It's a completely new way of creating slide, of writing a document. Or sometimes I write an email and I say, ChatGPT, rewrite this email. And I say all the sentences that I can improve. Say, yeah, I like this email that uses this sentence better than the one that I wrote. So I can swap those things. And the person that received my email, now he has a better experience with my email because it's possibly more polite, or is more comprehensive, or is written in a way that is more legible. Some example, because some people will think, oh, that's just for writing a document or creating a presentation. So here I want to summarize where the industry is trying to make space for those tools. Marketing, how to do campaign, content creation, campaign analysis. We thought that analyst was a very human only skills. Now we can use those tools to do better, possibly analysis in the future. Market research for sale. For sale is interesting because if you think about what do salespeople do best, they like to be with their customer. They like to spend time with their customer and talk about the product and sell the product. So things like sales outreach, email, maybe, yeah, they have to do, but maybe it's not the best use of their time. Summarization of meeting or document, account research, understanding which customer to call today. I wish I knew it and I had already my phone in my hand so I can have the conversation that I'm wishing to have. Competitive analysis or the finance team, budget planning, forecasting, market research, financial analysis. Those things now start to become feasible through this technology. Operation, like content analysis, business review, business planning, project management, or engineering. As I mentioned before, there is a lot of code writing and code review and documentation and debugging that can be done. I see a question, so I stop and I'm trying to read it. Yes, please keep your question coming. We're monitoring it.
Alessandra, just I hope you don't mind, just because you were inviting some questions there. I can put some to you now from the Q&A pod if you would like that, or I can
Yes,
reserve them
yes,
for the end.
yes, absolutely, absolutely.
Okay, perfect. Let's take a beat and just have a look, because there
Yeah.
are a few in the Q&A pod for you, Alessandra. So first and foremost, we have a member joining us today who wants to know your opinion on Chat GPT-4 versus Chat Turbo. And they have in brackets Chat GPT 4.5 purchased by Microsoft. So what is your opinion on Chat GPT 4?
So first of all, I have to say, I have personally tested it yet. So you can read whatever you can in my answer. However, I know some of the capabilities, and I think they are both of them very advanced compared to what the majority of us it's using it today with GPT-3. You also have to remember those models are never one beast. It's always testing new feature. We call it GPT-4, but in reality, there are 100 different variation of those models that are constantly being tested and utilized for different use case. And that brings me to the second part of my answer, which is what's your use case? I always like to talk about first, what do you need it for? Because I'm always of the opinion of going with the cheapest model that does the job. You don't need to have a Ferrari if you can only drive on a mountain road where the speed limit is 30 kilometers per hour. So possibly the Ferrari is wasted in the road. If you can drive out on a highway, possibly in Germany where there are no speed limit, go for it. That's the best way to get good use of your technology. So always having that discussion, we can have a discussion on use cases later. Any other question?
Yes, please. So there's a question here for AI website creators, such as Microsoft Azure and Wix, Shopify. What issue does Alessandra possibly see with these? And also, there's a further question on whether AI will erode the gender pay gap and will it result in receding progress with voice cloning? Okay, so there's a lot in that. I might just come back to that first question first and foremost. So for the AI website creators, like
Yeah.
Microsoft Azure, like Wix and Shopify, do you see any issues with these, Alessandra?
So Yes or no, depending on what is being used for the generation of the website, so the code behind the analysis of the data of your website, or the generation of the content. Because the generation of the content, I do have issue, and I will be talking about those issues in this presentation, so I may jump into that area immediately. But the other part of the question is on gender pay gap, and I will also touch as part of this presentation. So maybe now I get in the second part of this presentation,
Perfect.
just keeping a quick eye on the time, and I think we are right in time. So we understand that this technology has been there for quite a lot, is a paradigm shift in how we implement this technology. It learns from data, it doesn't learn from rule. It's widely applicable. We are seeing all those examples on how can it touch different function in different industry, all the tools that we use every day for pleasure, for life, and for work. And let's move into now an interesting study on the value of this technology. I just read this study this weekend to prepare for this presentation. I thought it was just the right thing to do because it's a super recent study. So Harvard worked with the consulting business, Boston Consulting, 758 consultants that were given different tasks. And those are amazing people, right? Those consulting agencies, there are such amazing brain. The result of this survey, first of all, three groups: groups without AI, group with AI, and a group with AI and training, because upskilling is super important. So 12% of more tasks the people with AI were able to complete, 25% faster, and 40% at higher quality. There were some tasks that were too difficult. So 19% of those were too difficult, and actually the performance were even worse because the tool doesn't know what to tell and tells random things, and therefore you do even a worse job than if you are alone, right? But look at the positive. It's amazing how much it can boost our capability. So the super top people, they only improve 18%. The very bottom of the pile, I would say maybe a younger employee or someone that is doing a mediocre job, it went up to 70%. So in average, 40%. But there was a gap based on your own level. But it improved everyone. And therefore, this is my call to you. Let's all start to learn more about this technology in more detail, not just 10 minutes in my talk. I've given you a couple of links here on the basics, the fundamental concept around AI. Please go in, lean in. This technology is touching everyone, and we all need to know how to use this tool. It's like the world is now using car. You want to be able to drive, so you have the same advantage of moving at the speed of everyone else that is using a car, because if you're still walking and other people are using car, you will be slower, right? So some feedback from you. But now I want to address the question that it was just asked and is so important. Can we trust the content that is generated from this technology? And how is it impacting the inequality that we have in the world? And we know that gender inequality is one of our biggest issues. 50% of our world, it's made by women and gender diverse, non-binary people. And yet, the progress that we have made so far, everywhere in the world, it doesn't matter if you're in Europe, in North America, or in Africa, we have different improvement, but still too many years to go to reach equality. On the other side, AI is not stopping. The question was so well formulated. how are we going to face those current societal challenges in a world of AI, where the investment in AI is growing so fast, the impact of AI, it's moving at a speed that is touching everyone. And unfortunately, the people participating in this world are so little. We still have less than 30% of STEM workers that are women. In education, the percentage of women doing PhD or higher level studies in STEM and AI, it's not changing in the last 30 years. So something is not okay. It's not going in the right direction. And back to the question, AI has a problem. And the AI problem is that it discriminates. Because when AI is trained on examples that do not represent our society fairly, then the outcome of those models are biased. The outcome of those models are preferring one class versus another. So we thought we learned with face recognition in 2008, a 3 billion industry that was sidelined. Fast forward, generative AI, same issue, same discrimination, same bias, again reproduced from image generation model. When you ask for a doctor, you get men. If you ask for a lawyer, you get women. Bloomberg did an amazing study. I will share the link later. They analyze the image generation in the context of how many women and how many men are represented on different jobs, on different races, and so on. Just one example. In the society, only in US only, we have 33% of women registered as female lawyer. The model was only able to generate 3%. It means that those models are regressing us, are forgetting the 30% of progress that we have done in our society. So, based on that, my question back to my answer back to the question, if those models are not even able to represent our society up to the progress that we have done so far, that we have made so far, how can we hope that those models will help us to solve some of those societal issues, pay gap, gender gap, employment gap, unless we strategically act on it? And that's why now I move on my third part of the session, just here, the point that we were touching on before on the pipeline of the AI talent. Look at the numbers, 78% men, 21% female. We need more diverse set of people that are thinking how to create this model that are less biased, that are looking at different ways of achieving those results with less discrimination, with less bias, with less issue as the one that we have today. And impact on women's job. So this is not touching on the pay gap, but on the employment as a whole. So this research from Goldman Sachs said that 78% of worker women compared with 58% of working men will be subject to AI disruption of their work due to automation of their occupation, right? It's a lot. And it's a lot of more women than men. So if we look at the plot that we have, the graph that we have, women, so generative AI will make it easier for people to develop new skill and succeed at the workforce Yeah, but more for men than for women. 51% of men and 40% of women. Generative AI will make it easier for people to move into new job. Yeah, again, that's 44% yes for men, but only 36% for women. Because if those models discriminate, it means that when you are going through an interview process or a screening process of curriculum, CVs, and the model is preferring men candidate versus women candidate, which is one of the issues that we're seeing today, then men are having more chances to get their job, right? Gen AI increase employment opportunity more for men than for women. Generative AI make it easy for people to earn money. Here we go. The number that you have asked, I finally got to. 42% for men, only 35% for women. So the gender gap and the pay gap are still all here, and I even made it worse. So we need to act today. And your next question could be, but what do we do about it? We need to raise our voice. Women in AI is a nonprofit organization that is a community-led, working towards shaping an inclusive future for everyone, studying those models, identifying those bias and discrimination, and raising the issue. We are present in 150 countries across the world, from US and Canada, Middle East and Africa, Europe, Asia and Australia. And we have 30,000 members, 48,000 people following us on social media across more than 40 countries. We have ambassadors like in Ireland. And the event that we'll do today, it's here with the ambassadors and the community that we have in Ireland, and more than 200 volunteers that are helping us to educate more women in this world. It's becoming easier and easier to get in. It's a super interesting world, and we need more diverse employees in this space. So on the other side, we also need to connect across stakeholder and international organization to help to drive the implementation on the recommendation on the ethical AI. Only when through the AI Act and through all those standardized recommendation and bodies like UN and UNESCO that are trying to lead us on the right path, we can really start to achieve equality and positive impact through this technology that benefits everyone. So this organization, Women for Ethical AI, with UNESCO, I'm co-chairing it with the ADG at UNESCO, Gabriela Ramos, is a female-led platform that is advocating for national and international ethical policies and practical action and structure to support company government to implement and leverage this technology for the benefit of humanity. So what is the organization does? As I mentioned, is female-led, is promoting a number of assessment tools to try to understand whether government are ready to implement AI in their nation, whether private organizations are considering the ethical implication, and supporting those international discussion around policy. Only when something becomes a legal discussion and a policy discussion, things really start to happen. But also, as you were asking those amazing questions, we need to be aware. We need to have an observatory, a global observatory that allows us to see where things are working, where things are not working, which are the best practices, and so on. So the Women for Ethical AI has 18 professional stakeholder in the steering committee from everywhere, from academic professional, industry, civil society, author, journalist, international organization, and union representative. So with that, I like to stop and just move in the Q&A session. Feel free to follow me on LinkedIn and or ask me directly question in there. And let's go in and see if there are any other question that I can answer.
I think there is, and thank you for a most inspiring, a powerful lecture, Alessandra. And there are one or two things I'd like to come back to, but let's look at the questions here. There's quite a range. And I think you touched on it a little bit because of the AI Act, the whole question of lack of regulation. You know, what's going to happen there it's all very well, we've talked about policy, the AI Act, but for individual organizations or for an industry like advertising, what do you think is going to happen so there'll be oversight and monitoring of that area? How do you think that's going to develop?
So the AI Act has been a very important first step towards regulation and changing what it was the lack of regulation before into a world where just 2 weeks ago we were through the Shutterstock CTO in DC talking about very similar issue now in US. How do they think about copyright? How do they think about gathering these and crawling those big data set to be used for training those models without having the right copyright to use the data, right? And so many other issues there. So it's an important change that is actually happening today, initiated through the AI Act, and now other countries are responding to that. The European Union in the European Commission is establishing a new office, which is called the AI Office. The AI Office is actually tasked to give us a very specific document that explains the way we need to document the model that we build. Because once we build a model like ChatGPT, do we know if it discriminates, if it has bias or not? It's only by trial and error that we are testing those models into different scenarios that we discover different pitfalls. But with the AI Act and with the AI Office governance structure, then we need to audit every model that we build through a number of roles and processes that will allow to shed some light in impossible discrimination, bias, or any other risk, security risk that those models can cause upfront before rolling it out in the hands of millions without even knowing what those model will create.
And Alessandra, do you see, just in relation to that like most organizations have an auditor, or teams of auditors, depending how big they are. Do you think we will have AI auditors, that there will in the future monitoring and looking for those issues that you've raised?
Absolutely. I think it may manifest as some big centralized organization that are constantly independently monitored.
Yeah.
Or within company, like we do the financial audit. Every company is used to the financial audit. It's not new. It's not something that scares anyone. It's just part of who we are. I believe in the future we'll have the AI audit also at the same level. Why not?
Exactly. There's somebody here would like your specific advice. They're in the financial area and they're wondering how would they tip their toe in terms of learning about AI? How do you think can be done? I know you put up some links and so on. But for people in an organization, how do you think, should this be through the organization, or should we all take, empower ourselves to get that
Yes,
information?
I will say those two things should happen concurrently. So voice your ideas, your ambition within your organization, because I'm sure there are leaders in your organization that are already talking about it and hoping to have evangelists within their organization. The other thing, let's try to own our own future. So there are training courses, there are, I will suggest for those that want to specialize on generative AI, one of the most important skill is prompt engineering, is learning how to communicate with those systems in order to give them instruction of what you really want to do and how you want it done. And the more specific you are, the best the result is. And that's also a result coming very clearly from the study, the Harvard Review study that I have in my slide, right? The better you use those models, the higher the quality of your results. Just my suggestion is pay ChatGPT Enterprise in the function that you're interested in, and obviously don't use your company spreadsheet, but generate some spreadsheet that are open source. There is an example of
Mhm.
budget, and just play with it. See what you can do with it.
Yeah.
Learn in your specific area how to use, and even if you have to pay a subscription to get access to those enterprise functionality, it's worth, because you
Yeah.
learn, you augment your capability, and when your employer will come and will say, who is available to be an evangelist on rolling in this technology and make it part of the new tool. Like before, we didn't have email and we were calling people. Now
That's
we write email, right? We'll all learn how to write email. And then it became something so normal for us to do. I think ChatGPT and those kind of capability, not ChatGPT per se, but these capabilities, generative AI capability, will touch every part of our job.
Yeah, and I think it's important what you're indicating there, Alessandra. You don't have to have a PhD in technology or engineering. That all of us can access this, and that's what makes it unique, doesn't it? We all need that particular skill, which is really a problem-solving skill, questioning skill. And you had a slide that said skill up, particularly for women. So, I think like to reinforce that you don't have to be a technologist, just inquire and see. You may need support, but that support is readily available if you look for it. I think that's your message. There
Absolutely.
is another question here about that AI is a supportive tool, do you think, but not advanced to replace the possibility, of humans. But it's asking the question, what about minorities, disabilities, and, AI and neurodiversity? I mean, there's a lot of work done on that area now. And, how do you again access that information and pathway to that knowledge?
Yeah, I think it's a technology that possibly can become very useful to everyone. It just needs to represent everyone so it can provide the same outcome and capabilities to every user instead of favoring one group over the other. So I think it's a very important discussion. It's a very central discussion on the table of regulators and on the table of engineering and product division that have understood that this is a serious issue of this technology. And it's not a solved issue, so we need to take our active part in continuing to raise the the voice of making sure that everything that we use is done through the best standard and practices. And I hope in the future we'll have some label to those system, like the same way when you shop and you buy food that has the label on the amount of sugar or fat that is in the product, we can have a way to classify the fairness of those model, and then we'll be able to leverage and decide to use only those that have fair outcome for everyone.
And that goes back to your, point about monitoring and understanding what the biases are to try and facilitate better use. There is a question here about personnel, if you like, in HR possibly restricting the use of AI in the workplace because they're concerned about how it can be used. Does that go down to organizations again, kind of moving down from the AI Act, but having policies about when and how you use AI in the workplace to, as you say, enhance the work that you're doing?
Yeah, absolutely. So there are two aspects. Using AI for recruiting, it's a very dangerous practice and it's not approved from the AI Act. It's one of the high risk scenario because those model discriminate. So if you are a man, you will have higher chance to get the job versus a female. So has not been approved in the AI Act. AI used for recruiting purpose, it's not an approved practice. On the other side, companies are scared that employees use this technology. Why? Because this technology keep learning of every single interaction we have with this technology. So if you're using the customer data, if you're using sensitive information, it's like we know as human that we cannot speak about sensitive information outside our job or outside our colleagues that are aware of that specific situation. ChatGPT is an outsider. You cannot use ChatGPT with sensitive information. However, what I've said before, get a ChatGPT subscription. Don't use the spreadsheet of the financial projection of your company, but get some data that resonate. A general company with synthetic data, just learn the capabilities of what you can do with that. And then in the future, we will integrate those tools into our workforce. So for example, today you can use the email to do your job because it's a tool that is part of your company. You cannot use external email provider and send your working email on your personal account. That's you cannot do. The same thing, ChatGPT or those kind of capability will come in your working environment with the right security rule. And until that integration happen, don't use with internal documents. Don't use with internal spreadsheet. So those are security concern. Those are intellectual property concern, very legit. And I'm not advising anyone to leverage any internal document to upskill. There is a lot of free documentation, free spreadsheet, free data, free anything that you want in internet. Just learn the skill. Don't apply into your daily job unless the company has brought you that tool.
Alessandra, in case we'd be accused of bias, there was a question there. It was anonymous, probably from a male attendee, who asked about recent research from, I think, Google Gemini that was bias shown against white males. Is that a concern? Or is it the same issue about bias and input? Whoever's controlling that data.
It's a very good question. Yeah, it's a very good question. That study demonstrated that when you try to counterbalance in an unregulated way, you create the opposite problem.
Yeah.
It was more than men. The one that I read was about history and generate a general in the Second World War, and it was coming as an ethnicity that it wasn't even part of the Second World War. So it was trying to create diverse representation, but it wasn't matching the fact, right? So it was kind of counterbalancing reality. So we still haven't got it right. We have some idea, we are experimenting. We know that if you use the data with no curation, you are very biased against women and minorities. If you try to brute force compensate, you do very obvious mistakes on this other side. So we're still trying and experimenting how to get it right, but it's important to continue to observe and monitor and understand whether this technology is actually in the right direction. At the moment, we're going left and right.
Alessandra, unfortunately, our time is up. It's gone very, very quickly. It was an inspiring presentation, very powerful. And I think you've left us with a clear message of really taking control of our own lives, seeing what's going to happen. This technology, whether we like it or not, is going to impact us. And there's no reason why we shouldn't upskill ourselves. We don't have to be technologists, and to go about it, I suppose, what you're indicating, I suppose, in a simple way initially, little by little, to build up that expertise. And I think that's a really powerful message. And thank you very much. And thank you, Claire, and all the team here. Unfortunately, I say time is up. And of course, to our audience, who really fantastic questions and participation. And thank you very much for that. And we look forward to seeing you the next time. Have a good evening. Goodbye
Thank you,
now.
everyone.
Bye.
Thanks a million.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you. Bye now.